2032. The Show Must Go On, MLTS Part 3. Asger Skull. Chapter 4. Summary. New York, what a town. Donnie's iconic phrase echoed in Leo's mind. It really was a beautiful sight. But Leo had seen horrors beyond anyone's wildest imagination. His feelings were becoming too intense. No amount of alcohol could numb it, and no amount of scars could redeem it. This was the only way. To truly be lost in the black void. To be completely devoid of all feelings or thoughts. Notes. Buckle up, it gets real SRS. This story, especially this chapter, covers some pretty intense stuff. Understand that you are not alone. Stay safe. HeartFindowelpline.com. Refer to and notes for Chapter 4 trigger warnings. Spoilers will apply. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. Wheeze, cough, hang on to me. I got you. Leo spoke softly, wrapping Mikey's arm around his shoulder to help his little brother walk. They made it into the Med Bay subway car. Raph went to make Mikey some tea, Splinter walked away to think, and Donnie bolted to his room, while covering his tympanus. Leo walked Mikey over to the gurney, helping him sit down on the edge. Let's check your shell first, Leo stated. Mikey stayed quiet. Leo carefully took off Mikey's sash and jacket, which was like undressing a ragdoll given Mikey's arms were paralyzed. The orange turtle winced as the jacket was removed. The rain soaked in it made the jacket heavier and stuck to the wound. Leo leaned closer, looking at Mikey's shell. Sure enough, there was a large impact dent the size of a big fist with several cracks. It was like cracking an egg, but instead of yolk leaking through, it was blood. You boy, that's not good, Leo mumbled. Mikey nodded, seeming exhausted. Leo sighed, walking across the room to grab the first aid kit. Let's get that cleaned up. Then you can lie down. All right, Leo smiled. Just then, Leo's phone hummed. He pulled it out of his side pouch and saw a text from Raph. How is he holding up? He texted Leo. He's fine. Arm movement will be back soon, but his shell was fractured, so it'll heal in a month. Leo replied before putting his phone away. Leo then realized that the first aid kit was actually in his room because, well, no matter. Leo left the med bay, letting Mikey know that he'll be right back. Leo came back with the kit, opening it up and getting to work. He cleaned the wound with hydrogen peroxide, which Mikey whimpered at. Then he taped gauze onto it before wrapping around the shell with bandages. Then Leo helped Mikey lie down onto the gurney, tucking him in before taking a closer look at his arms. Not much could be done besides cleaning them and wrapping them up in bandages as well. As Leo walked over to the sink, the small pitter-patter of rat feet echoed closer to the medbay. Dad walked into the room. Period. How is he? Splinter asked calmly. Mikey's all right, Pops. He'll be okay. Leo reassured as he wringed a wet towel in the sink before walking back and placing it on Mikey's forehead. Good, good, Splinter nodded. He turned to Mikey. We need to talk about your behavior, he said sternly. Like, now, Mikey grumbled. Leo pressed his beak. He awkwardly stepped off to the side, going to search the cabinets for medicine to help Mikey's pain and fever. He kept listening in closely. This wasn't the first time that Splinter had lectured Mikey, or any of the boys for that matter, and they often become pretty heated. I'll let you do your thing, Dad, but if this gets out of hand, ever since your arms got injured, you've been nothing but careless and reckless, Splinter shouted. You'd throw fits all the time and scoff the constant whining, but Dad, it's not fair, Mikey protested. I don't care what is fair. You could have died, Splinter screeched. The room went silent. Leo's shoulders tensed. He slowly gave Dad a discreet side glance. This is getting out of hand now. I need to get Pops to calm down. Leo wasn't the best at defusing a fight. In fact, during the past 2 years fighting Raph, he'd usually be the one to start it. But he had to do something. I can't even begin to describe how disappointed I am with you. Do you have any idea what could have happened? It's a relief that Purple had trackers on you. Otherwise, who knows where you could have been? Splinter lectured, his voice fierce. I'm sorry, Mikey mumbled. Don't apologize, Mikey. You ignored your brothers and continued to run off after we found you. I just can't believe that you would do such a thing. Why do you act so incomp? You are a ninja, for crying out loud. Shut up. I'm sorry. Quit apologizing. Give me a moment to think. What am I going to do with you, Michelangelo? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Can you know it off? Think, Leo, think. Ugh, you are just so. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Dad, cut it out. He's sick, that's punishment enough. Leo intervened, his voice cutting and sharp like a knife. He spoke quicker than he could think. I just can't let him finish that. I'd rather kill myself before that happens. Splinter glared at Leo, and Leo glared back. His expression was fixated on his father's eyes. Shy, it's like I don't even know my own son sometimes. You're always off in your own little worlds, Splinter grumbled, shaking his head at the floor. Yeah, I could say the same about you, Mikey scoffed. Period. You are such a brat, Splinter mumbled under his breath as he exited the room. Leo couldn't tell if that was directed at Mikey or Splinter himself. He didn't know which was better. Leo continued to search through the glass cabinets over the counter as he saw Raph enter the room out of the corner of his eye. Don't worry about him, little bro. He just needs some time to cool off, Raph said. Mikey replied with some attitude, and chewed his cheek. Well, here, I brought you some tea. Sorry, it's not as hot, but I could reheat it for you if you want. Not as hot? Wouldn't Raph come over right after he made the tea? Did something happen in between? It's fine, Raph. Thanks, Mikey sighed, his voice weaker and gravelly. Leo heard the scraping sounds of a metal stool, glancing to see Raph sitting down beside Mikey and setting the tea down on the fold-up table. He started to listen more than look for the medicine, eavesdropping. In fact, he stopped looking altogether. How are your arms? Raph asked. Fine. Still numb, but Mikey paused. Leo didn't bother to look. They'll come back, Mikey added. Then he hissed, you're making that face again. Whatever you gotta say, just spill it. There was a pause for a moment. Leo could feel Raph's eyes burning holes into him. Raph took a long sigh. That was really scary, Raph said finally, not knowing why you snuck out or if someone forced you to. Watching you hurt yourself just to get away from us. Realizing you were out on your own in the middle of the night, especially in New York City. And that creepy look, I'm just really glad you're okay. Well, more or less. There was another pause. Leo felt his shoulders relax, realizing he had them kept tense this whole time. Next time, just come talk to us. I'm sure we could work something out without anyone getting hurt. I understood how you felt when you said you wanted a normal day. I can get that, Raph said. Wait, Mikey said that? When? Raph continued, we all want a normal day. But the thing is, we're not normal. We've never known a life of being a human person like Dad was. Fighting mutants, catching Ubiquitous, dealing with villain after villain. That's our normal. We never asked for this, you never asked for this. Don't beat yourself up, King. Leo could hear Mikey quietly sniffling a cry. Leo looked over his shoulder and smiled. But then he frowned, thinking, I wish this wasn't our normal though. My brothers deserve better. Then Leo paused for a minute, and I don't. Mikey inhaled sharply, and suddenly went into a coughing fit. Shit, that's right. Gotta find the medicine. Damn it, why can't I stay focused anymore? Leo glanced back at the cabinets, and took a moment before finally finding what he needed. Hey, not to be mean, but how did the tea get cold? Mikey asked curiously. Raph answered hesitantly. Well, after that stunt you pulled, Donnie got aftermath jitters again. Leo whipped his head around, accidentally knocking over the medicine and first aid supplies on the counter. Both of his brothers turned to look at him. Leo was the most familiar with Donnie's meltdowns. Unlike Donnie, Leo refused to call them aftermath jitters. He preferred more proper terms. Meltdowns, shutdowns, overloads. Donnie preferred to call them something else, something lighter. Regardless, Leo was worried for Donnie right now. Is Donnie okay? The son asked, trying not to raise his voice. Don't worry, Leo. He's alright. I helped him calm down, Raph said reassuringly. Aw shit. I should really apologize to him then, Mikey grumbled. Raph and Leo both looked at him particularly disturbed. It wasn't like Mikey had never sworn before. It was just unlike him. Mikey quickly flexed his eyebrows up at them and shrugged. Then something seemed to click in his mind. Mikey looked down at his arms again, and Leo watched as he managed to wiggle his fingers. Oh good, they're coming back around. Leo felt the slightest bit of relief. Mikey reached for a bag of cough drops on the table next to him. Oh here, let me. Raph quickly reached for the bag. No, I can do it, Mikey insisted. Mikey slowly took a cough drop and tried to unwrap it, falteringly. After a short while, he succeeded and popped the drop into his mouth. Then Mikey read the wrapper, his brows furrowed at the writing on it. Get through it, the wrapper read. What was wrong with that? Leo didn't understand. Raph, can you help me up? I want to apologize to Donnie, Mikey said with a serious look on his face. Raph turned to Leo for confirmation, but Leo just shrugged. He seems fine to me. Well, all right, Raph complied as he held Mikey under his armpits and helped him stand. Mikey shivered as he stood up. Leo noticed quickly and grabbed the blanket from the gurney, throwing it over Mikey. Raph wrapped his around Mikey, helping him balance. The three of them walked out of the med bay car and over to Donnie's room. The sun braced himself for the moon's dark side. As they reached his subway car, Leo knocked on the open car door to get Donnie's attention. Donnie was still sitting on the floor, looking through his phone. Hey Don Tron, how's it hanging? The sun asked cheerfully. The moon waved, acknowledging their presence but not looking away from his phone. Donnie's brothers stared at him for a moment. Then Raph cleared his throat deliberately. "Well, Mikey here has something he wants to say to you," Raph said. Donnie nodded, still going through his phone. "Perhaps you could put your phone down for a moment," Raph asked slowly. Donnie sighed, and then put his phone away, looking at their feet. No eye contact. This must have been a really bad shutdown. He tilted his head forward, and gestured his hand as a way to say, "Proceed." Mikey staggered over to Donnie with Raph's help, Leo following beside them. They all stood there for a long moment before Leo gently elbowed Mikey to get on with it. Mikey took a deep breath. "Donatello, my brother, I am really sorry for what I did. It wasn't right for me to run off like that and risk getting hurt. I should have recognized how worried you would be, and reconsider my actions. This whole situation was my bad and entirely my fault. I promise that I'll never do it again. What can I do to make it up to you?" Mikey said in a calm and methodical tone, his sore voice slightly croaking in between. Donnie looked up at Mikey's plastron and took a second to think. He opened his mouth as he tried to say something but then gave up and looked down at his hands. "Well, first, I just want you to get better," Donnie signed without any eye contact. "And I call dibs on the last slice of pizza," he added with a soft smug smile. Mikey chuckled, and then nodded. "Deal." Afterwards, Mikey insisted on apologizing to Splinter too. So they did, Splinter apologizing back as well, and hugged it out. Then Mikey began to get really tired. "Leo?" And Raph helped him to rest in his hammock as Leo gave Mikey some medicine. Raph insisted on staying with Mikey, encouraging Leo to go take a nap. I guess that crying all night could really tire someone out, Leo thought. So Leo staggered over to his room, and flopped down on the bed and immediately let his mind slip into the black once again. Leo woke up later that day. The time was now stepping into the late evening. He felt better physically, but not emotionally. Leo felt like it wasn't fair if Mikey got hurt if Leo didn't get hurt either, so he relapsed again. 5 cuts each, the standard procedure. It's only been like 24 hours since the last time. Just getting more and more frequent. Why can't I stop? Leo sighed, and got up to get the first aid kit and wait, where is it? He then remembered that it was now back in the med bay, because he had to patch up Mikey. Leo let out a frustrated groan. He dressed in some comfortable pajamas, wiped the blood off his arms with a towel, and tugged at the sleeves to hide his scars without irritating them. Then he left his subway car, heading over to the med bay. Before Leo could reach the med bay, he heard someone softly crying. It came from Mikey's room. Leo's heart sank, feeling even worse than before as he hurried over to the subway car and knocked on the closed doors. "Mikey, are you all right?" Leo asked, worried. Mikey didn't respond, but instead cried a little louder. Leo wasted no time and pried the doors open, rushing over to Mikey's side. The youngest turtle was lying down, tucking himself snugly in the blanket, and still looking very feverish. Leo gently shook him. Hey, what's wrong, buddy?" Leo asked softly. Mikey whimpered, squinting his eyes shut. It hurts. I don't want to be sick," he whined. Leo sighed sympathetically. As children, Mikey would get sick a lot given his turtle breed, and every time he did, the ornate box turtle would cry. Mikey was an energetic and lively soul, so he hated being slowed down due to illness. "I know," Leo soothed, "but it's going to be okay, Angelo. I'm here now. Leo's got you." Leo pressed the back of his hand against Mikey's forehead. Yep, still warm. As he pulled his hand back, Leo saw a faint smudge of blood had been printed on Mikey's forehead. Leo freaked out and quickly used his sleeve to wipe it off before Mikey could notice. He held both hands behind his back, tugging at the sleeves. "I'll be right back with some medicine, okay?" Leo whispered as he walked backwards out of the room before quickly turning around and ran to the med bay. Leo frantically cleaned up his arms with soap and water before wrapping them up in bandages. After that crisis was averted, Leo sighed in relief and walked over to the cabinets to grab a bottle of NyQuil to help break Mikey's fever. He also grabbed some candies from the kitchen on his way back to Mikey's room, knowing how much his little brother hated the taste of medicine. Leo knocked on the door as he walked back in the room. "I'm back. I got you some NyQuil." Mikey grimaced as he stared at the bottle. Leo chewed his lip as he opened the bottle and poured a dose into the tiny plastic cup. He set the bottle down before walking over to Mikey's hammock and sat down on the edge beside his little brother. Mikey sat up, covering his mouth with his hands. Aside from Mikey's nightlight, the glowing nerves were acting as their only other source of light in the dark subway car, though it was still dim. Mikey, Leo pressed. "No, that shit is disgusting," Mikey protested, scrunching his face. Leo still wasn't used to the swears, but tried his best to ignore it. "It'll help you feel better though." "Yeah, but," Mikey shuddered, "why couldn't we get the pill form?" because this works faster. Now shut up and take it, Leo insisted. You'll get some candy where you're done, Mikey groaned before putting his hands down and taking the medicine. He braced himself as he drank the dose, and immediately gagged as the cough syrup went down his throat. Leo patted his head, handing him a piece of candy. Ugh, why does it even taste bitter in the first place? Mikey complained as he popped the candy in his mouth. That'd be the alcohol that's in there, Leo chuckled. Gross. I don't get why people like that stuff. I'm never gonna drink. Never ever, Mikey stated, crossing his arms. Leo nodded, feeling awkward. It wasn't like he had anything to say about that. Deep down, Leo hoped that Mikey would stick to that resolution. Mikey yawned, rubbing his eyes. Leo smiled softly and got up to leave the room. Wait, Mikey called out. Can I sleep with you tonight? Sure, Leo nodded. Leo held out a hand to Mikey, helping him up. Mikey shivered, reaching for his blanket and wrapping it around him. They both held hands, and they started walking to Leo's room. Along the way, the Portal duo heard something playing from Raf's room. The lights were dimly lit in the subway car. Are Raf and Donnie watching movies again? Mikey whispered. I dunno. Let's go check it out, Leo whispered back. As they approached Raf's room, Raf looked up at them. Sure enough, both Raf and Donnie were lounging on top of Raf's bed that was mounted on the wall. A pillow was in between their laps, holding up Donnie's tablet, which was playing a movie. Donnie was the only one here not wearing pajamas, Leo assuming that Raf probably dragged him out of the lab to go rest. The younger brothers approached the bed. Scoot over, Leo said as he held Mikey up by the waist, Raf reaching in with one arm to help the youngest brother up. The sun jumped, swinging one leg on before pushing himself up and lying down next to the moon. Leo winced at the stinging pain in his arms, trying his best to suppress the expression. As he settled, Leo saw that Raf was staring at him. Leo chewed his lip and looked down at his arms to notice the faint blood stains leaching through the sleeves. Raf knew the answer already. Leo tugged at his sleeves and then folded his arms before resting his head on Donnie's shoulder. Together, the brothers stayed up and spent the night watching movies. As the night went on, Mikey was the first to fall asleep. Then Leo. Then Donnie, and then Raf. The following day rolled along. The four brothers continued to hang out together, playing games and having fun, and overall staying close to each other. For Leo, it was nice to spend some more time being close to his brothers. Unfortunately, it'll be his last. It was getting late now. Leo stepped out of the sewers to think, and each train of thought led him down the same path. This was it. It was time to go. At least he was cherishing this final day. Leo climbed up a building. Any building would do. After all, it's New York. He savored each moment as he climbed. The sights of the city, especially how beautiful it was at night. The sounds of cars honking and sirens wailing in the distance. The cold, breezy autumn air. He pictured the image of seeing his brothers one last time. They were smiling and laughing. Raf beat Mikey at Mario Kart. Donnie challenged not only to beat Raf, but also beat his time, as well. The memory faded as Leo reached the rooftop. He checked to make sure the rooftop access door was locked so no residents would stumble upon him. Then he walked over to the ledge. He leaned over it, resting his forearms as he looked over the city. New York, what a town, Donnie's iconic phrase echoed in Leo's mind. It really was a beautiful sight. But Leo had seen horrors beyond anyone's wildest imagination. His feelings were becoming too intense. No amount of alcohol could numb it, and no amount of scars could redeem it. This was the only way. To truly be lost in the black void. To be completely devoid of all feelings or thoughts. But what about the afterlife? What lies beyond the light? The last time I drifted into the light, it turned out to be fate. It was just my brothers pulling me back into the land of the living. Leo felt hesitant, but he shook his head. They're better off without me. Why couldn't they have given up on me the first time? Time to go. Leo stepped back from the ledge, walking backwards until he hit the other side. Just a run and jump. Run, jump, that's all it'll take. Leo sprinted for the ledge. Leo immediately skidded to a halt. He spun around frantically to see who was there. But there was no one else on the roof. Leo, where are you? Mikey called through the communication device. Leo dropped to his knees, sighing in relief that he didn't get caught. Fucking hell, what was I thinking? I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. I'm such a sucking idiot. Leo heaved and began to sob. Then he pulled himself together. Hey, Mikey, I was just getting pizza for us. Leo lied, putting on his best show. But we already got pizza here, Mikey said innocently. Oh, right? Huh, sorry. Must have slipped my mind. I'll be right there. Cool, because Donnie's challenging you to Super Smash Bros. He's betting the last slice. Huh, wouldn't miss it for the world. Mikey. Leo returned home. He tried his best not to break down on the way. No one can know, No one could know. This was a stupid idea. Of course Mikey could call for me, especially in the middle of a game. When Leo entered the lair, he saw Mikey and Donnie sprinting towards him. Tackle hug, Mikey called out as he and Donnie jumped at Leo and caused him to fall onto the ground. Ow, hey, what was that for? Leo laughed. Donnie thought it'd be funny. Haha, and it is, Mikey giggled. Donnie, really? Leo looked over at Donnie, who only smiled and rolled his eyes. It didn't seem like him. Whatever the case, Leo was home now, and Donnie challenged him to a game. The three brothers rejoined with Raph, and all of them continued to play games until they all got tuckered out. Mikey fell asleep, so Raph picked him up and put him to bed. The sun and moon stayed up a bit longer before Leo noticed Donnie staring at him. You look tired, Donnie said. PFFT me? You're the insomniac, Leo scoffed. Sure, but... Donnie paused for a moment. Then he sighed. Hey Leo, can I ask you something? Period. What is it? Leo asked, pausing the game. Donnie fiddled with his fingers. I was thinking, I was wondering if... Sigh, why is this so hard? Donnie took a deep breath. Leo, do you care about us? What? Of course I care about you guys. Why would? Leo exclaimed before he saw Donnie's face. He was crying. Why was he crying? You just keep on distancing yourself more and more every day, and... I know it's not, Leo, Donnie sputtered, and then groaned in frustration. Hey, SHHH, Leo soothed as he scooted closer to his figurative twin. Donnie, you know I love you, right? I care about you, Leo sighed, and paused for a moment. Period. I know I've been very off lately, but nothing has changed. I promise. Leo lied as he hugged his brother. Donnie didn't say anything. He just hugged Leo back. The disaster twins held each other for a long while. Then Donnie got up. I'm going to bed. You should too. Come on, Donnie mumbled. Leo and Donnie both got up, and then went their separate ways to their rooms. As Leo closed his subway car doors behind him, he wondered why Donnie was acting strange. It wasn't like Donnie was completely emotionless, of course, but the whole day with him just felt out of the blue. It's probably nothing, Leo thought. He put on his pajamas, and then flopped on his bed. The moment he did, everything from before began to settle in. I could have been dead by now. Everything would have been so different. Leo's mind began to swarm with thoughts that dragged him down like a weight, so he took a different approach to reach the void. Leo reached under his bed and pulled out another can of beer from the case. Drink until I'm dead. 1 drink, then 2, then 3, then 6, then he was out. His mind sank into the comfortable darkness. Leo woke up the next morning with yet another terrible hangover. He felt miserable and nauseous again. He threw up in the bathroom again. Mikey found him again. And Leo lied again. 3 days have passed. The present day being October 18th. Leo was cooking in the kitchen again, making dinner for everyone. After that other night, Leo did his best to pretend that everything was fine. No one can know. At least cooking and music was a nice distraction from everything. He blasted Spanish rock throughout the kitchen as he cooked. Leo's body grooved to the music, his mass tails and piercings flowing with the rhythm as the sun's smile shined bright. Leo, Mikey shouted over the music. Leo looked up at him, and then turned down the volume. Mikey was holding a drawing in his hands. What do you need, hermano? Leo asked. Mikey ran up to Leo and handed him the drawing. Yo, cool it with the running your shell is. Hey, this looks pretty great, Leo smiled. Mikey drew a picture of the whole family, including Draxum. Leo hid his grudge and remembered what Draxum told him. Do it for Mikey. Nice job, Mikey. I'm proud of you, and even more proud that you captured my good side, Leo added arrogantly, and he tossed his masked tails over his shoulders. He handed the drawing back to Mikey, turning up the music again. Mikey giggled and nodded, running back out to the center of the lair. After a few more minutes and a few more great songs, Raph entered the kitchen. He began searching through the drawers that were filled with miscellaneous items. Raph seemed to get more frantic as he searched the drawers. Leo turned down the music. What are you looking for? Leo asked with suspicion. Tape, Raph answered, continuing to search the drawers and cupboards. Tape? I think Donnie has some. Why do you need tape? Raph sighed and paused as his expression turned sad. I ripped Mikey's drawing. What? It was an accident. I didn't mean to. No, Raph, Mikey interrupted from the entrance to the kitchen. He had tears streaming down his face. It was all my fault. It's my stupid arms, he cried. Leo's expression dropped. He stopped cooking and rushed over to Mikey and Raph. Hey, it's okay. We'll find some tape and patch it up, Leo stated with a reassuring smile. Leo patted Mikey on the head, who smiled weakly, and wiped his tears that refused to stop flowing. Leo took a second to check Mikey's arms that continued to glow dimly, not really showing signs of another pain episode. The three brothers went over to Donnie's lab to borrow some tape from the soft-shell turtle and smooth out the drawing before piecing it back together. Afterwards, Mikey gave the drawing to Raph, who looked the most worried for partially being at fault for ripping the drawing, and Raph hung the drawing up on the wall in his room. Leo felt nervous walking in there. The room had to be redone from the other night, when Raph destroyed the place in his sleep. But Donnie managed to fix it up pretty well. Let's just hope that'll never happen again. It had now been 2 days since Mikey ripped the drawing, but 5 days since Leo had attempted to end his life, and he was about to do it again. This time, he made sure to leave once everyone had gone to sleep, and even grabbed a couple of beer cans for the road. Maybe a drink or two will ease the nerves a bit. Death doesn't hesitate, so I can't either. Leo headed out into the New York City nightlife, searching for a taller building this time. A skyscraper. Molina Tower. It had felt like a millennia since Leo had last been here. He teleported to the top of the tower, looking over at the rooftop pool that was 2 buildings over. He missed Cannonball Day. Today felt like such a lonely day now. The pool was covered with a tarp, covered in small flakes of snow and mud. Leo looked up at the sky and noticed that it was lightly snowing. Snow was very rare in NYC during October. What a rare, beautiful night it is. A perfect final night. Leo sat down, dangling his legs over the edge, the bright LED Molina Tower sign glowing on his back as he took one can from his side pouch and cracked it open. Leo could still recall that day from so long ago. Cow, a, bun, gah. The 4 brothers jumped into the pool, Leo hitting the dab as they splashed into the water. Cannonball, the 4 said in sync. The splash was so big, it knocked all the water out of the pool. The turtles cheered and danced in victory as the chlorinated water rained back down on them. "Ha! You must be this rad to ride that ride," Mikey taunted condescendingly. Based on our velocity and entry angle, I concur. We rad, Donnie agreed. Leo chuckled to himself at that memory as he finished drinking the first can. He reached for the second one, but as he opened it, the beer fumbled out of his hands, spilling off the building, and falling for a long time before a very faint clatter hit the pavement below. Mood. Guess that was his cue. Leo stood up on the ledge, taking a deep breath. He did not dare to look down, keeping his eyes fixed on the horizon. Another deep breath. He held out his arms. Then tears began to break out. Leo heaved and sniffled. The alcohol didn't do much to numb anything. Yet his mind felt slow, not fully registering that he was going to die. Just a couple more minutes and it's over. Leo stepped forward, the balance shifting him over the edge. Everything happened so fast. Suddenly, Leo was rolling out of a blue portal and safely onto the ground below the tower. What the fuck just happened? His heart was beating a mile a second, bursting his tympanums. His breathing was uneven and panicked. After a moment of trying to collect his scattered thoughts, Leo noticed that in his hands held his katanas. He instinctively saved himself. It was in his nature. Leo dropped the katanas and began to sob heavily. He collapsed onto his knees, wrapping his arms around himself as he cried. Damn it. Fucking damn it. Why did I bring my katanas with me? Of course my reflexes would kick in. The wind around him whirled, brushing cold early winter air on his skin. The snowfall was getting unusually thicker, more intense. Leo shivered, feeling his tear stains transform into small icy flakes underneath his mask. Now this was really rare. Heavy snowfall in late October. Leo was freezing. He could hear his scared heartbeat quiet down and become slower, really slow. His breathing became even and calmed down to a slow and quiet pace, barely noticeable. Leo's mind became exhausted and loopy. Did the alcohol finally settle in? No, that doesn't make sense. Something strange was happening, and Leo was too drowsy to think. Maybe I should just go home, he thought. He reached for his katanas, trying to open a portal, but it was no use. He was too tired and too weak. Leo slowly stood up, sheeting his swords back in their scabbards on his shell. He wrapped his arms around him, trembling in the cold, and began the long walk home. Along the way, Leo found himself at the entrance of Bronx Park and decided to take a shortcut through the park. His brothers used to go here a lot, especially during snow days. They'd build a snowman in the shape of Jupiter Jim while singing their special snow day song, argue which movie is better, have a snowball fight, and drink hot cocoa. Leo smiled but then looked down to see that the playground had been destroyed. Most likely due to the Krong, the city seemed to be really lousy about fixing it. The park looked untouched, withered and frozen in time. The trees shook violently in the wind, losing their leaves. The grass was brown and soggy with mud. The dark night made the whole picture more gloomy overall. It was just an abandoned memory. Leo's eyes began to water as he walked through the park. It just wasn't the same park he remembered. So many things have changed. Why couldn't one thing, just one thing, stay the same? Leo began to sob again, considering a reattempt. This was just too much. He didn't know how much longer he could take it. He dropped to his knees, heaving. As though the wind was alive, it whirled around him to give a comforting hug. But instead Leo was met with a freezing chill that added salt to the wound. Leo blinked, his eyes open, staring down at the muddy dirt. In front of him was a shiny blue butterfly. It sat in the mud, slowly fluttering its wings. Then more shiny blue flickered around him. A swarm of blue butterflies, perhaps 10 or so, all crowded him. Some huddled on the ground where his tears fell. Others got up close to his face. It was then that Leo remembered something Mikey told him once. That butterflies drank turtle tears because they tasted salty. It was a funny and endearing fact. Leo stared at the one butterfly in front. It then got up and took flight, fluttering around Leo's face for a few seconds before flying off behind him. Leo turned his head over his shoulder to watch as the butterfly fluttered around a tree before soaring up to the sky. Behind the tree, Leo recognized a familiar figure, dressed head to toe with warm winter clothes, all in various shades of purple. Donnie, Leo mumbled. The moon emerged from the shadows, approaching closer to the sun. Leo stood up, wiping his tears, and trying his best to put on a smile. Don't mask with me, Leonard, Donnie grumbled. It's exhausting. Leo's expression softened. He paused for a moment before slowly bringing his arms back down to wrap around himself. He let the tears continue to flow. What are you doing here? Leo asked. What are you doing out in the cold? And without winter clothes nonetheless. It's freezing, Nardo, Donnie scolded. Do you want to go into brumation? I'm fine. It's not that cold. Leo, you're shaking, Donnie hissed. Then he sighed, pulling off the scarf around his neck. Here, he mumbled as Donnie wrapped the scarf around Leo's neck. With the scarf on, Leo could feel his hot breath hit his face. He slowly reached a hand, tugging the scarf up more to bury his face in it. Donnie wrapped an arm around his twin, walking him out of the park. Care to explain why you're following me? Leo muttered. Well, are you going to explain why you're out here? Donnie asked, raising an eyebrow. No, then neither am I. The conversation ended there. As they reached the exit of the park, Leo spotted the turtle tank parked on the street. Donnie must have driven it out here. As they climbed inside, a wave of heat rushed out and blanketed Leo. The comforting sensation quickly went away as Leo registered that the tank wasn't much warmer than the outside. Donnie sat Leo down in Raph's seat before hurrying over to grab a spare blanket and threw it over Leo. I'll get the AC turned on. We'll get you warmed up in no time, Nardo, Donnie said as he pressed a few buttons at the controls which closed the turtle tank's door and caused the vents to hum. Thanks, Donnie, Leo mumbled, tugging himself in the blanket even more. Then Donnie sat down in his seat, pausing for a moment. Leo, he started. Then Donnie spun the chair around, facing the blue turtle. If there's something that's bothering you, why don't you say anything to us? Well, you're not really the emotions kind of guy, Leo teased. It doesn't have to be me. Let it be Raph or Mikey or Dad or someone. Just someone? Donnie shouted. Leo blinked in surprise. It wasn't like Donnie to be invested in someone's mental health, let alone Leo. Leo turned his head to look at Donnie, noticing his expression. It was fierce, it was angry. Donnie was upset. Leo felt a pit of guilt weigh on his plastron. No matter how hard Leo tried, he would always screw it all up and make people upset with him. Just talk to me, Leo, Donnie insisted. Leo's lips quivered. He knew what he had promised Raph. He knew he had to tell the others sooner or later, but how do you tell someone you love that you're suffering? Donnie, Leo croaked. Oh, where do I even begin? Donnie's expression relaxed, staring intently at his brother. Leo heaved, tugging at the blanket with his arms. Well, that's one hell of a start. Leo slowly held up an arm, showing it to Donnie. Donnie's marker brows furrowed. The son trembled hesitantly as he carefully peeled back the glove, revealing the bandages. They were soaked in blood. Donnie jumped to his feet, eyes widening. Oh, my muffins, he muttered under his breath. Oh, Leo? Donnie quickly stepped forward to Leo, grabbing at his glove and pulling it back up. He stared into Leo's panicked expression, holding his arm tightly. I'm sorry, Leo whimpered. No, don't apologize, Leonardo. Don't ever apologize, Donnie hushed. Then Donnie sighed before quickly wrapping his arms around his brother tightly. Leo cried out loud as he immediately reciprocated the hug, clinging onto Donnie's coat. The disaster twins held each other like that for a long time. Donnie held on a little tighter as Leo cried a little louder. Aren't you mad at me? Aren't you gonna yell at me and tell me I'm stupid? Leo muttered, his voice muffled in Donnie's shoulder. What? No, of course not, Leo. I'd never get mad at you for this. Never, Donnie soothed. What? But it is stupid. You should be mad. I'm only mad that you ran off in the middle of the night in the cold, Donnie snapped. You scared me, Leo. Leo turned his face to the side, resting his cheek on Donnie's shoulder. Leo didn't know what else to say. He was just racked with overwhelming guilt. I'm sorry, Donnie, Donnie sighed. Let's just get you home, he hushed. Donnie let go of Leo for a moment, walking over to the controls and pressing a few buttons. He set the turtle tank on autopilot, on a route back to the lair. Then he returned to Leo, scooting over to sit next to him on the large chair. Leo tugged at the blanket, resting his head on Donnie's shoulder. Donnie closed his eyes, resting his head on top of Leo's. After a while, the tank turned into the alleyway that led down to their garage before it suddenly jolted and stuttered to a stop. An alarm notification beeped. Biocomponents frozen, shutting down, the system spoke. Donnie sighed, looking behind him at the door. It's just a few feet, we can't make it, Donnie said. He turned to Leo. Think you can walk, period. Yeah, Leo mumbled. They both got up, Leo pushing the blanket off of him. It's warm enough now that he was more awake, not that he wanted to be. Of course Donnie would be able to follow me. He's put trackers on all of us. I was obviously going to get caught. As soon as the disaster twins walked out of the tank, the harsh cold wind surrounded them. Flakes of snow scattered about. The walk into the garage seemed longer than it was supposed to be, but soon enough, the metal shutter door closed behind them. Donnie used his phone's flashlight to light their way in the dark as the brothers walked down the long ramp to the garage. The garage of the subway lair was just another abandoned section of the underground. Enough space to fit the tank, along with a bunch of unopened moving boxes that haven't been touched in 2 years. Leo didn't think they would ever get around to unpacking them. He wondered what else could be inside those boxes. Probably just some old useless junk. Like me, Leo sighed. Donnie stopped and turned around. You okay? Donnie asked. I'm fine, Leo lied. Donnie pursed his lips, brows furrowing. He thought for a moment. Period. Well, how about we go make some tea? Then we can sit down and talk, if you want. Leo smiled. He knew Donnie was trying his best to connect, despite emotions not being his strong suit. Perhaps it would be nice to talk to someone who wouldn't get upset or mad as often as Raph or Mikey. Leo nodded. Donnie smiled and nodded back. Together, the brothers walked through the garage and to the kitchen. The sun and moon walked in the kitchen late that night, both covered in flakes of snow. Leo pulled out his phone and checked the time as it changed to midnight. He tugged at the scarf that Donnie gave him earlier. I could have been dead by now. I wouldn't have to see a new day. Why couldn't my story have ended by now? Leo tapped through his phone, looking at the clock app, and just counted the seconds as they ticked by, the seconds reminding him that he's still alive. Leo didn't know what to think or feel about it. He didn't know if he could handle it. His thoughts, his feelings, they were becoming too intense to endure. So Leo didn't think. Leo didn't feel. Instead he counted, counting every new moment. After a few minutes, the tea kettle whistled. Leo snapped out of his trance and looked up, noticing Donnie making tea. Leo sighed, trying to figure out what conversation he was going to have soon. Just then, large thudding footsteps echoed down around the corner. They startled Leo because he knew those were Raph's footsteps, and Leo knew that he'd have to explain himself to Raph. The footsteps got steadily louder as Raph approached the kitchen. Leo's gaze locked onto the entrance, and then he saw Raph's eyes. They were blank. No, not again. Leo instinctively let out a whimper. His breathing went uneven. Leo wanted to take a step back, but he couldn't. Why couldn't he? Raph, are you all right? Donnie asked slowly. Raph glared at Donnie for a suspenseful moment, and then suddenly, Raph flinched and gave Donnie this look as if he was a feral and wild animal. Raph shouted a fearful roar and began to attack Donnie. Donnie grabbed the tea kettle and chucked the hot water at Raph before dodging out of the way. Raph obliterated the stove with one fierce punch, barely missing Donnie as the water splashed all over Raph. He let out an agonizing scream, but his eyes remained the way they were. Leo felt his breath quiver, not taking his eyes off of Raph for even a second, not even when Donnie screeched at him. Raphael, you need to wake up. I tease you. Raph made no response. He shouted angrily again. Leo winced, wanting to run, wanting to move, but nothing. He was frozen, and chills ran down his shell, but not from the cold. Raph roared again, and threw a pan across the room, which flew right by Leo's face and crashed into the wall behind him. Leo yelped in a panic, and immediately regretted it. Raph's eyes now focused on him. Those empty, blank eyes. Raph charged at him, but Leo was too paralyzed to react soon enough before Raph grabbed Leo by the neck and hoisted him in the air. No, Raph, let him go, Donnie yelled as he ran over and reached for Raph's fingers around Leo's neck, trying to pry them off. Let him go. Raph, you need to wake up. Leo gagged, breathlessly gasping as Raph's grip held on tighter. It hurt. He couldn't breathe. Not a single bit of oxygen was getting in. Leo wanted to scream and cry, but he couldn't. He dug his fingers into Raph's hand, trying to pull away. He aimlessly kicked his legs around, panicking. But nothing was working. I don't want to die like this. A lightning bolt flashed as Krong Raph held Leo up in the air. The Krong's vines seeped into Leo's veins. It was agonizing and choked his throat. The pain spread all over his body, but he couldn't give in. Not yet. The Krong clutched his large metallic arm all around Leo's body, crushing him like a grape before chucking him against the ground. Then he stomped on Leo, forcing him to cough up blood. The Krong strangled Leo again, but Leo pushed through, begging Casey to close the portal. Leo's vision went blurry. This was it. He was going to die at the hands of his brother. Again, if this is it, I want you to know I finally understand. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Raph. Suddenly, a metal bowl smacked the back of Raph's head. Raph turned around, growling. Leo could just barely see the small figure in the background, in orange. Bits of bright orange light sparked from it. Drop him. Now, Mikey shouted furiously. Raph screamed, throwing Leo against the ground, and turning to face towards Mikey. Leo hit the floor hard on his side, yanking at the scarf and coughing, gasping for deep breaths. He tried to stand up, but his muscles ached, collapsing against the cold kitchen floor. Donnie rushed over in front of him. Elio, are you okay? Donnie shouted. Leo didn't respond. Instead, he fixed his eyes back on Raph. Raph's ferocious look snapped back at him, thanks to Donnie's yell. Leo wheezed, too terrified to dodge. But Donnie didn't waste any time. As Raph held his arm up in the air, Donnie shoved Leo out of the way. Elio, move. As Leo was pushed over, he heard a mighty smack from behind. He looked over his shoulder to see Donnie knocked on the ground. There was blood. Raph stood there, looming over him, and panting heavily. But he was still. Donnie, Mikey screeched. Leo didn't dare to keep his eyes off of Raph. He watched as Raph blinked in surprise, his pupils finally coming back, his brows furrowed. What? Raph muttered under his breath. Raph started to approach Donnie, when Mikey quickly ran over and blocked him, spreading his arms out wide. Stay back. Don't you dare get any closer. You hear me? Mikey screamed in a panic. Leo inspected Raph's expression. It mirrored Mikey's terror. Then he looked over at Leo. Leo swallowed dryly, tensing up. Leo feared that Raph would snap back to Sleepwalker Raph at any minute, even though Leo knew it was ridiculous. Raph turned around and scanned the kitchen. Leo could only imagine what he was thinking. This was terrifying for everyone involved. Raph turned back and faced towards his brothers. For a moment, Raph opened his mouth to speak. Leo braced himself for Raph to yell at him, but nothing happened. Instead, Raph took a long, deep breath. His expression relaxed. He then turned around and quietly stormed out the kitchen. As soon as Raph left the kitchen, Leo let out a huge sigh of relief. He dropped his gaze, looking directly at Donnie. He was still knocked out cold. Leo scrambled to his feet as Mikey dropped to his knees beside Donnie. Donnie, wake up. Please wake up. Mikey's voice screeched as he tried to shake Donnie awake, gradually more and more violently. This isn't funny, Donnie. Get up, please. Leo placed a hand on Mikey's shoulder, stopping his little brother from shaking the older one, and got down on one knee beside him, scanning Donnie. Okay, calm down, Leo, focus. Unconscious, black eyes, and deep scratch marks in his arms. That's all. Yeah, he's going to be fine. He has to be. Just focus. Don't panic. He'll be fine, Leo mumbled gravely, not believing himself. He looked back at Mikey. Help me. Get him up. Mikey held one of Donnie's arms over his shoulders as Leo took Donnie's other arm. Leo noticed that Donnie felt lighter than usual before looking over at Mikey and realizing that he was using his levitation powers. Leo didn't bother to tell him to stop, even though Leo was worried that Mikey might strain himself against Donnie's weight. Together, they lifted him up and made their way over to the med-bay subway car, a small line of blood trailing behind. As they made their way over, they saw Splinter walking towards them. About time Dad stepped in. Boys, what on earth happened? Splinter asked, raising his voice. The younger brothers both looked at each other. Leo opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a silent cry. It felt like Leo couldn't control his voice. Leo tried his best not to break down. He needed to keep composure. Donnie needed him. For the first time in a long while, Leo felt purposeful. Yet now there was all this pressure on him. Ask Raph, Mikey grimaced. He nudged Leo, and they both kept walking, taking Donnie inside the medbay. Splinter sighed and nodded, heading towards Raph's room. Leo and Mikey laid Donnie down in the gurney. Then Leo ran over to grab the med kit. Leo tried his best to keep it together, but with each second, the fear was becoming more and more intense. Just calm down, you idiot. Everything's fine, Leo hissed at himself, but then his confidence crumbled. This is too much. I can't take it. I can't. He couldn't stop himself from shaking terribly as he fumbled, and almost dropped the med kit as he hurried back over. "Gee, get me some ice?" Leo mumbled, his voice quivering as he set down the kit and opened it up. Mikey didn't respond. Leo knew Mikey was staring at him with concern. Mikey was always good at reading emotions, but now was not the time. "Mikey, go." Leo raised his voice as he shut his eyes and clenched his fists. Mikey placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "Leo, I need you breathe, and I need you too. To go get me some ice," Leo snapped as he swatted Mikey's hand off. Leo glared at Mikey with a fistful of rage. Mikey gulped and carefully took a step back, Leo realizing that he was scaring his little brother. Leo blinked and shifted away, hyperventilating. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Leo choked on his words as he ducked his head down and covered it with his hands. Please, I'm sorry." Leo's breathing panicked as his body continued to tremble in fear. Everything felt cold and hot at the same time. His heart was beating faster than light. Once again, his mind convinced Leo that it was the end of the world, and Leo couldn't get it to stop. He couldn't control himself again, and he was scared. "Leo, I need you to breathe," Mikey repeated. He took a few deep breaths, as well, encouraging Leo to do the same. Leo slowly looked up at him and began to follow along. Mikey smiled reassuringly. "I'm not going anywhere. I won't leave you," the ornate box turtle spoke softly. Leo's lips quivered as he tried to force a smile that then morphed into a frown as he began to sob. He was too exhausted to put on his facade. Mikey opened his arms out for a hug, waiting for Leo's response. Leo paused for a moment. "Calm down, you idiot. He's not going to hurt you." Then, he carefully approached Mikey and slowly reciprocated the hug. Mikey hugged him loosely, being very gentle. It felt nice and relieving. "I never thought I'd get to hug Mikey again. I never thought I'd get to see him again, or anyone at all. Fucking hell. This has been the worst night ever. Why did I try to kill myself? I'm so stupid. I'm so fucking stupid. Why can't I think normally anymore? Why do I have to keep living with this pain?" They stayed there like that for a long minute, Leo continuing to sob quietly. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't find the energy to do anything. After a short while, they heard Donnie make an audible sigh. Leo and Mikey quickly looked up. What?" the moon mumbled under his breath, blinking his eyes slowly though his left eye was still swollen and remained slightly closed. "Donnie, I thank the Supreme," the sun exclaimed in relief. He took a deep breath and let out a nervous chuckle. Leo turned to Mikey. "Michael, see, could you please bring me some?" "On it," Mikey shouted as he bolted out of the room. Leo turned back to Donnie, scanning over him. That arm really wasn't looking good. "How are you feeling? Are you all right?" Leo asked, worried. Sure. Never been better," he said sarcastically. Donnie said sarcastically. He rubbed his forehead and sighed before looking up at Leo. "What about you? Your neck okay?" "It looks, well, it's been better." Donnie squinted his eyes in disgust. Leo laughed. "Yeah, I'm all right. Everything's all right now." Mikey hurried back into the room, ice bags in tow. He handed one to Donnie, who pressed it against his eye. Then Mikey turned to Leo, holding the ice to his neck. Leo stumbled as the cold hit his skin. It took him a moment to realize how sore his neck felt. He never registered it at first. A couple hours passed by as Leo and Mikey helped Donnie recover. Leo also took the time to wash his face and redo his makeup. Then, Raph entered the room with Splinter following close behind. Leo instinctively tensed up as Raph walked over to them. Raph noticed and sighed solemnly. "Donnie, how are you holding up?" Raph asked, holding up a smiling facade. "Looks like I know where I get it from. PSSH, I'm fine. Just a black eye and a few stitches on the arm." Donnie shrugged, flicking his wrist. Raph's eyes widened for a second. He then blinked and subtly shook his head before glancing around at his brothers. "Okay, look, I came here to say sorry for what I've done. I know I've caused everyone quite the scare, and wrecked a lot of things, even hurt my own brothers," Raph explained. "It's okay, Raph. You weren't in control," Leo said. No, it's not okay. I've been ignoring these problems for too long," Raph interrupted. He then sighed and rubbed the back of his head. He spoke hesitantly. I think it's time. I've reached for help." It felt like Leo's world cracked like a mirror. Raph, out of everyone, Raph admitted that he needed help. Leo didn't understand why he felt jealous. Perhaps he was jealous of the fact that Raph had the confidence to admit it. Meanwhile, Leo was over here, not even supposed to be alive right now. It wasn't fair. Why should Raph get help while Leo drifted further and further away? Out of reach, like back in the prison dimension. Why did his brothers have to save him time and time again? Intentionally or not, he wasn't worth it. Come on, Leo, Mikey called out to him. Leo snapped back to reality to see his brothers, and his dad joined in a group hug, Mikey reaching out a hand to him. Leo smiled weakly, trying not to let his eyes water. He walked over to his family and joined in the hug. I'm really not that worth it, Leo quivered. He looked up at Raph and realized his oldest brother was staring at him. Raph smiled reassuringly, as if reading his mind. I guess it's time we all got help. A couple days have passed, and it's getting dark out. Leo was furious. He was freaked out of his mind. Oh, the nerve of that guy, Leo grumbled, rubbing his cheek that had been slapped. Okay, sure, I slapped Donnie in the face first, but he was unhinged. The gas mask glowed a violent light blue hue. Donnie's pupils shrunk, tinted in red and pink. Leo groaned, smacking his head to get rid of the thought. You're a freak, Leo shouted. A fucking freak, fuck. Why did I say that? I swear I didn't mean to, Leo whimpered as he paced around the lair. For fuck's sake, Leo, Donnie retaliated. How much longer do I have to save you? I did everything I could to keep you alive. I even had to. Stop, it, Leo screamed. He began to hyperventilate again. I don't want to hear it anymore. I want to forget. Leo was terrified of what he had seen. Sure, Donnie can get a bit strange, but he would never. Leo groaned in frustration and stormed off to the training room. He headed straight for the punching bag and began to beat it up profusely, letting out his rage. But it only fired him up even more. It didn't make the pain go away. He needed it to stop. Leo needed to go numb. Leo turned around, looking at his subway car, which was right across from the training room. He scrambled over to the doors, prying them open just enough for him to squeeze through. He collapsed to his knees and reached under his bed, snatching the case of beer from underneath. Leo treated the drinks like sedatives. He frantically opened the first can and began chugging it like it was water on a dry, hot day. Then he crushed the can in his fist and reached for the second one, cracking it open and chugging it down too before crushing the can and tossing it to the side. Then a third, then a fourth, spilled the fifth all over the floor. His mind was woozy. His feelings were numb. He reached for the sixth can of beer. Then his mind dipped into the black. Attaboy, Leonardo, get it all out. Leo's memory slowly came back to hurling up in a trash bin. His exhausted body was trembling and everything was sore. The room was spinning and he had no idea what was happening. He just felt sick, so he threw up. He kept on vomiting until his stomach ached so hard that it was in too much pain to push even further. Leo coughed and gagged before noticing that he wasn't alone. Leo leaned back, looking up to see Raph holding him. Leo squinted his eyes, trying to see Raph better. When the fuck did you get here? Leo mumbled. Raph's brows furrowed. Period. You don't remember? I've been here for like the past 5 minutes. Leo leaned in closer to Raph's embrace, yawning. No, I don't. What's the last thing you remember? Raph asked, curiously. Leo paused for a moment. His head hurt. Leo sighed. I remember being angry, that was it. Leo's body ached. He felt miserable and tired. Raph pulled Leo closer to him. Period. Let's just get you to bed, he whispered. Raph picked Leo up, Leo shutting his eyes as the room continued to spin. Then the alligator snapping turtle set the red-eared slider down slowly and gently into bed. Leo's eyes drooped closed the second his head rested against the pillow. It took a moment for Leo to realize that Raph took off Leo's mask, gloves, socks, and sash. His katanas were tossed against the floor with a small clatter before a blanket draped over Leo. Leo yawned, turning onto his side to face Raph. That's when Leo could see Raph's expression. He was upset. Of course he would be. I'm sorry, Raffy, Leo whined. I broke your promise, Raph sighed, looking away. Yeah, you did. I broke it a long time ago. I couldn't stop it. Raph, I'm so sorry, Leo whimpered before heaving out heavier sobs. Raph rubbed Leo's shoulder. SHH, it's okay. You're going to be okay now. Raph's got you. Sheesh, he soothed. Leo closed his eyes too tired to muster another word as he cried himself back to sleep. Leo woke up the next morning to a painful headache. Leo groaned as he blinked his eyes open. The doors to his room were open, Leo barely seeing through his bleary vision that Raph was talking to Mikey. He couldn't tell what they were saying, but he knew they were talking about him, because every minute or so, their heads turned towards the room before turning back to each other. Leo felt a knot in his stomach, becoming increasingly overwhelmed with guilt and anxiety. After a while, Mikey nodded and walked off as Raph turned back and walked into the room. "Hey, aye, buddy. How are you feeling?" Raph cooed nervously behind a smile. "Like shit," Leo grumbled. "What's going on?" Raph laughed awkwardly before he chewed his cheek, and his expression twisted into a mixture of concern and fear. Then he sighed. "Donnie told us everything. About what happened last night." "What?" Leo muttered. His head hurt really bad. It was hard to remember anything. "You know, about what he had done, his secret, and about your secret, about you knowing what happened back when." "Stop," Leo shouted. He winced, curling up and covering his tympanus. "I don't want to remember that. Stop. Please don't say it. Please." Whoa, comma. Easy, Leo." Raph hushed as he crouched down on the ground beside Leo. "It's okay. I won't say anything. Just try to relax, okay?" Leo curled up even more, trying his best not to hyperventilate again. I don't want to hear about it ever again. It's too much," he whimpered. Raph's lips quivered before letting out a shaky breath. He leaned forward and hugged Leo. I know. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. Trust me, it wasn't meant to be like that. We were going to tell you, but we could just never find the right time." "I'm sorry," Raph explained. Leo continued to cry, trying so desperately to not let the memory seep into his mind anymore. He tried so hard to shut it out completely, as if nothing ever happened in the first place. He didn't want to know. The day was quiet and slow, but soon it came to an end, and Leo had decided. He had enough. This was it. He was ready to fully go through with killing himself. But this time, Leo had a plan. A plan to leave behind happy memories for everyone. A plan on how he was going to do it. A plan on where he was going to go. A plan on how far he was willing to go to ensure that nobody would come looking for him. A plan to say goodbye. Notes: TW, medical setting. Verbal abuse, implied child neglect, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, there's 2. Alcoholism, mentioned ableist behavior. If you're feeling unsafe, there is help. Stay safe. HeartFandowelpline.com. As a bonus, I made a Spotify playlist just like the one Leo made in this story.